Minutes before meeting anyone, they wrote down exactly their type. Then they met. The list predicted almost nothing. Not a little weaker than expected. Close to zero. The checklist and the clicking were basically unrelated. And here's the part that should bother you. That same checklist is currently filtering your dating app. The study happened at Northwestern, in a room set up for a speed dating night. Undergrads showed up, got a name tag, and got handed a questionnaire before anything else. Rate how much you want a partner who's physically attractive, ambitious, warm, funny, good earning prospects. Normal stuff. The things you'd say out loud if a friend asked what you're looking for. Then the dates started. 4 minutes each. A bell, a chair shuffle, a new face. About a dozen in a row. Long enough to get a read, short enough to stay honest. After every date, you privately rate that person. How much you like them, whether you'd want more. Later, you secretly tick yes or no. Matches get contact info. Nobody gets rejected to their face. So the researchers now have two things: what you said you wanted and who you actually wanted. Then all they had to do was lay the two side by side and look for overlap. Take the guy who wrote that physical attractiveness matters enormously to him, right at the top. Did he light up more than everyone else for the most attractive women in that room? He didn't. He liked them about as much as the guy who shrugged at that question. Same for the woman who put ambition and earning prospects near the top of her list. She wasn't any more drawn to the ambitious guys than the woman who'd rated that stuff low. The stated preference didn't sharpen anything. It just sat there on paper, being wrong. Now, everyone in that room did have preferences, strong ones. Nobody was floating around indifferent. Attractive, warm, ambitious people got more yeses overall. That part is boring and true. The failure was personal. Your list didn't predict your yeses any better than a stranger's list would. And buried in, there's a detail that's stranger than the main result. Before the event, the men and women answered those questions differently, exactly like the textbooks say. Men rated looks higher, women rated earning prospects higher, clean, replicated, taught for decades. Then the bell rang, the real date started, and that difference basically evaporated. In the room, attractiveness pulled on the women's ratings about as hard as it pulled the men's. Ambition and earning potential moved the men roughly as much as they moved the women. The sex difference lived entirely in the questionnaire. It didn't survive contact with an actual human. Fine, you're thinking. One study, undergrads, a weird night in a room with a bell. That's the right instinct. So years later, they gathered everything anyone had ever run on this. Dozens of studies, thousands of people, different labs, different countries, different ways of asking the question, and the pattern held with an unsettling consistency, except for one crack in it. When people rated a written profile, a photo, a bio, a list of traits, their preferences worked fine. Say you want ambitious, show you an ambitious profile, and you'll rate that profile higher, every time. But put that same person in a room with a real human being, and the effect collapses. Same trait, same participant, same week, predictive on paper, useless across a table. Which means your list isn't measuring your taste in people. It's measuring your taste in descriptions. If that just moves something for you, that's exactly what this channel is for. Stick around, because a description is a tidy little object. You can hold it up against your list and compare. A person isn't a tidy little object. A person is happening at you in real time. Think about the last time someone told you their job title and you were already bored. Nothing in that title was disqualifying. It was the pause before it, the way they braced. That's what you're actually reacting to on a 4-minute date. Timing, warmth, whether they laughed a half-beat late. None of that has a checkbox. There's no field on the form for leaves, good silences. And there's a second reason the list fails, which almost nobody notices. Look at what everyone wrote down. Kind, funny, attractive, smart, has their life reasonably together. Nobody wrote moderately cruel. Nobody kept their intelligence preference at a bit slow, ideally. So the lists all say roughly the same thing, which means they can't tell anybody apart. A filter everyone sets to the same value isn't a filter, it's a formality. Sure, there's some variation. You rated humor an 8, your friend rated it a 6. That gap is far too small and too noisy to steer who you fall for on a Tuesday. So the list is generic where it should be personal and precise where it should be vague. Which raises the obvious question, if your type predicts nothing, why does it feel so real? Because you can picture him, or her. You've probably got a face in your head right now. That face is where this whole thing goes sideways, and this is the part I want you to keep. Because preferences do predict attraction. Reliably, strongly, just not when you'd expect them to. When researchers ask about someone you already know, a partner, a crush, an ex, everything changes. Suddenly, the match between your stated ideal and that actual person is gorgeous. The numbers line up. You wanted warm, you got warm, you wanted funny, and look at that, he's hilarious. So, the ideal works, but only afterward, which is a very suspicious kind of working. Because there are two ways that could happen, and only one of them is flattering to you. 1. You had a template, you searched, you found the match, the list steered you there. 2. You fell for someone first, then quietly edited the list until it described them. The evidence points hard at door number 2, and it isn't even a close call. Track people's stated ideals over time, and they drift. They drift toward whoever's actually in their life. Someone who swore height mattered ends up with someone shorter, and height quietly stops mattering. Not through a decision, not through a conversation about it. It's just not on the list anymore. And they'll tell you, completely sincerely, that height was never really their thing to begin with. They're not lying. They're doing what you do, walking out of a shop having spent too much. The reasons arrive afterward, fully formed, wearing the confidence of reasons you'd had all along. Even exes get rewritten. Ask about a partner who's long gone and the ideal still bends toward them. Which is why your type changes shape every few years and always feels like it never moved. So the checklist isn't a forecast about your future, it's a memoir about your past. An honest summary of who you've already wanted, walking around in the costume of a plan. There's one more finding that makes this even harder to argue your way out of. Ask a room of strangers to rate the same faces and they'll broadly agree on who's attractive. There's real consensus. Same handful at the top, roughly the same order, no big surprises. Now let those same people actually spend time together. Weeks of it, classes, real conversations. The agreement falls apart. Your ratings and my ratings slowly drift away from each other. The longer you know people, the more your judgments stop being general and start being yours. Which is lovely and also devastating for anyone building a filter out of first impression traits. Because the qualities strangers can agree on from a photo are exactly the ones that stop mattering. So think about what your dating app is actually doing at 3 in the morning. It's sorting humans by the fields you filled in at sign-up. Height, job, 6 photos. Those are profile rating traits, the ones that work beautifully on paper and evaporate at a table. And where did your particular numbers come from? Be honest with yourself for a second. 1 came from your mother. 1 came from a friend's offhand comment you never re-examined. 1 is a scar from a specific ex, and you've been running that filter for 6 years. That's the thing quietly deleting people before you've ever heard how they say your name. So here's the useful part, and it's smaller and more annoying than just be more open. Stop treating your list as a filter. Start treating it as a record of where you've been. Loosen every criterion a stranger could verify from a photo. Height, job title, hobby list. Keep the ones you can only learn in person, how someone treats a tired waiter, how they handle being wrong. Then do what the research keeps pointing at. Get to a real conversation faster with more people. Not because you'll finally find the type, because the type is downstream of the conversation, not upstream. Everyone swears they have a type. What they've got is a confident summary of who they've already wanted. Your list isn't a forecast, it's a memoir, and it gets written after you've already fallen. If that reframes something for you, like and subscribe next. Why simply seeing someone repeatedly makes them more attractive. Go loosen 1 line on that list tonight. Your next blind spot's already in the queue.